First, I'd like to thank today's speaker, Professor Jim Jocelyn. Jim teaches music business and music tech here at Brookdale. And he owns the School of Music and Drama in Little Silver. He has his master's degree in music from Aaron Copland School of Music at Queens College. He's played at Lincoln Center and the New Jersey Performing Arts Center, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and countless clubs and festivals. He's played with like Wynton Marsalis, Jimmy Heath, Jim Riddle, Jeb Patton, and many others. He's a published author with a book from the Hal Leonard Publishing Corporation on guitarist Joe Pass and more. Jim's music has been featured on over like 40 TV shows, 2 commercials, 2 indie films. So without further ado, please welcome Jim Jocelyn.
Yeah, the indie films were terrible, totally awful that nobody saw, but they paid me a lot, which was the good part. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me here today. And I will say I had no idea, but to hear the jam really has already made my day. To hear that you guys are already playing at this level, playing great music, improvising, you're on the right track. So that was delightful to hear that. Really great. I'll get right into it. And I'm going to start this speech with, if not you, who? If not now, when? And if not, why? That's really profound. If not you, who? If not now, when? And if not, why? The first thing you need to succeed in any creative endeavor, music, drama, photography, you name it, acting, cinema, making a film, writing, poetry, is belief in yourself. You have to believe you can do it. I was very lucky. I was actually, when I was your age and going off to college, I was accepted to business school. And this is ridiculous and embarrassing to say, but I was so naive at the time. I didn't know you could study music in college. I didn't realize it was offered as a course of study. And I'm looking through that summer before college, I'm looking through the course catalog, and I realized music was treated as a full course, something you could really study. So I said to my mother, I think I'd like to switch to the music school. Would you mind? And without skipping a beat, she said, if that's what you want to do, if that's what makes you happy, do music. So I was very lucky in that regard to have support, that kind of support. Without flinching, go to music school. No concerns about what are you going to do in your life. Very lucky. A lot of people don't have that. There will always be naysayers, family, friends. You want to do something creative, you can't do that. You got to have a job to fall back on, this kind of thing. There's a adage, and it's true, right? If you put crabs in a bucket, if you put 20 or 30 crabs in a bucket, as soon as one starts to escape, another crab will pull him back down into the bucket. So they'll say you can't do that. And an unpleasant thing, the part they don't say, is that some people in your life won't want you to succeed at something they can't do or were afraid to try themselves. Right? So you have to kind of filter that out. If you're going to do something like this, you have to believe in yourself. So if not you, who? And if not now, when? Okay. So the next point, once you have belief, is honest reflection on yourself and your skills. Are you good? We were talking before, you play the guitar and the piano and sing, and I'm sure I'll find out more about all of you. But are you good? Are you great? Is it good enough? Is it something unique where somebody else would want to pay to hear it live or hear it recorded? That takes honest reflection and the realization that mastering an instrument, mastering music, mastering the recording studio, whatever your interest is, it's a very, very solitary endeavor. And you will spend countless hours by yourself working on this thing. looking back, I can remember myself practicing scales and arpeggios up and down the neck of the fingerboard. I didn't necessarily enjoy that part of it, but I knew what it would do for me. I knew how it would help me, and it came true, right? That's the hard work part of it. You need that. If you think you're not a solitary person and you can't stand being by yourself for those long hours and you always need to be around others, mastering an instrument probably isn't for you. Right? Success in something like music is pretty hard, and that's okay. It's okay if it's a more casual thing or something you just do for kicks or a hobby, but real mastery of something, songwriting. We spoke of in the business class about the 10,000 hour rule. You guys ever heard of that? The 10,000 hour law or rule? Right? It's a concept that when the Beatles were playing, when they first started, before they even started to record, they had performed for about 10,000 hours. Right? So when they got into that recording studio the first time, they were pretty good. They had mastered the concept of playing together and performing, knew each other well. You see a lot of things on television now, and these contests for singing and this. Well, I've never performed before, but I thought I'd give this a shot. No one's paid their dues, and then you hear it, and it's usually kind of sad what it actually is, right? So there's the hard work and the paying dues aspect of it, mastery. At my advanced age, to you guys, I'm just starting to come to grips with the fact that I'm a really good guitar player. It's taken me a long time because I'm cursed with probably what most musicians or most performers have, is the idea of being a perfectionist. I can listen back to a thing that I recorded, a live gig or something, and I can play 95% great and everything I love, but I'll focus on the 2 or 3 things that I didn't do well, right? So part of that is like self-acceptance. And at this point in my life too, I've come to a point recently where I've started a new practice habit. When you all came in, I asked for your email. I'm going to share some of that after the class, but some new practice habits and a new concept that have made me improve immensely over the last year or so. So one of the great things about music, it's a lifelong study. I'm still getting better. I'm still writing. I started playing professionally at 19. My first gig, I'll tell you a little bit about that later and another part of the thing, but I've been playing a long, long time. I still write, I still record, I still practice. So, practice, get better. I don't remember many quotes, a few, but one in particular that I'll never forget, and I think it's really beneficial, was said by the great Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher. He said this about 15 or 1600 years ago. Time is a made-up thing. To say I didn't have time means I didn't want to. Okay. We live in a world with countless distractions now. Countless. Computer, the phone, that cell phone, everything you can think of to distract, social media, that takes you away from whatever it is you want to do. So it's very easy to say, I meant to practice today, but I just didn't have time. I just couldn't get to it. Right? So you want to think about that. I know for me, it's like, this applies to things you do in everyday life. One of the things for me is going to the gym and exercising. I go about 3 or 4 times a week. I probably should go every day, but I don't use the excuse that I don't have time. I had time, I just didn't want to do it that day. Right? I'm honest about that. So to say I didn't have time means I didn't want to. In regards to practicing and getting better at music, do you sleep late? Do you watch a lot of TV? Do you play video games and play with your cell phone a lot? No. Can you get up an hour earlier to practice? Can you stay up a little bit later? Can you skip, that hour of video games on a regular basis? Yeah, now is the time. Now is the time. So, belief and a little bit of a hard work and honest self-reflection. These things will all help you get much better. You know, I know this for a fact. I do those things. 20 minutes here, half an hour there. I'm busy. I'm an adult. You guys are in college. Now is the time where you're going to have more free time probably now than you will in a few years. So time is a made-up thing. And then you have to find out what's your inspiration. Why do you want to be in the music business? Why do you want to perform? Why do you want to be successful in music? For me, and one of the things I was so pleased about when I heard the jam, I heard the sounds of Jimi Hendrix. And I'll just tell you a brief story. You know, when I got into the guitar, I fell into this thing by total chance, total lark. I had actually started music lessons when I was 7. A neighborhood lady taught piano lessons out of her house. I had a piano. My mother brought me there, and within about 3 months I was begging her, please don't make me do this anymore, right? I didn't like it and I wasn't ready. We went to Arizona when I was 11 to visit my dad's best friend who had just moved out there. One day he says, hey, let's drive into Nogales, Mexico to see what's going on. So we drive in there, and everywhere I see people playing the guitar. These great string bands on the street, there's guitar players everywhere. We go into a general store, and you know, there it is, this beaten up old acoustic guitar that was pretty much falling apart. But I loved it. And I said, you know, Mom, can I have that? My dad, who was really frugal, said, no, 20 pesos, you're not getting it. And my mother overruled him, you know, thankfully. Thankfully, she overruled him, and I haven't put it down yet.
You still have it, obviously, right?
Yeah, I don't have that.
No?
I don't have it. That it didn't last too long.
Wow.
Once I knew I was serious about it, I upgraded. I gave it into the place I was studying. But I heard the sounds of Hendrix, and that was one of the things for me in my story. A few months into my lessons, I'm learning how to read music, and the assignment is Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. It's a little corny, right? But I can still remember myself practicing that. I can see myself on the couch using the coffee stand as the coffee table as the music stand. And I realized right away, if I practice this hard enough, I can get it, and it sounds right. That made me proud, made my parents proud, happy, all that stuff. A couple months after that, a neighborhood friend said, hey, you got to come over. My brother has these records. He's not here now, so hurry up. Like, he snuck me into his older brother's bedroom to play Jimi Hendrix for me. And I was speechless. I knew at that point, I'll never quit. So for me, my why, and I still feel that way about Hendrix, in total awe and love him. So I was glad to hear that. For me, my why has just been a burning desire to be great. I have no, I don't think I had any natural ability. I didn't see the guitar and hold it in my hand, had this now, understood it and could play it and made sense of it. Some people have that. They're 1 in a million. There's natural geniuses in music, natural musicians who just pick up an instrument and can play anything. I would imagine Jacob Collier might be somebody current who probably is like that. He can play anything, what I know about him. But they're 1 in a million. So for me, it was work ethic. I was willing to do the hard work. Scales up and down, the arpeggios, all that business, the boring stuff, the dues, paying the dues. I was willing to do that. So that's my why. I just want to be great. You know, years ago I got a scholarship to a program in Manhattan. The Manhattan School of Music had a summer program for 2 weeks. They let me go to this thing for free or a small fee. They took up some of the, whatever it was. I went to this thing for 2 weeks and I realized right away I could never live in a big city. Right? Manhattan, New York, and I also don't travel. I don't fly in airplanes. I don't get on boats. So my scope is pretty limited. You know, so my inspiration in this is really just to be great, to be a great guitar player and a great composer. And I feel like I've accomplished that, you know, my goals. And I just still want to get better and do more. And that's really it. Your inspiration might be different. You might want to make $1 million and be rich and famous. That's valid. That's great. You know, if that's it, go for it. You know, now's the time. But, you know, one thing I want to mention with this, you know, the naysayers we spoke of before, the other crabs in the bucket who try to pull you down, they have one point. They have one part of their argument is valid. This is hard. And as we live, you know, 20, 30 miles from Manhattan, in our vicinity, there are thousands and thousands of people already doing this who are already great. They also want to play in the band on a late night TV show. They want to tour with Ed Sheeran. They want to write songs and do concerts that everybody wants to come here. They all want to do that, and they're already great. Right? They're not using the "man, I didn't have time" excuse, stuff like that. They're producing results. So that's the one argument with that there is validity in that, and that this is hard, and there's competition. So if you're serious about really succeeding and going further with it, you know, keep that in mind. The competition is stiff. When I started writing music that was used on television, I can imagine that then the competition was stiff. This was in the early 2000s. Now everybody wants to write music for licensing and advertising. Everybody knows that's a nice little, can be a side hustle or it can be a full-time thing if you're really prolific and can get a few placements. Everybody wants to do that. And people of your generation were born with a computer in their hand. So they're really good at producing 2-minute, 3-minute little pieces of music that work for advertising, film, television. So again, the competition is just ridiculous. Then you have to decide, well, what is it that you want to do? Do you want to perform? Like I said, do you want to be in Beyonce's band and go around the world, or play with Bruno Mars, or have your own band that does that? Do you want to perform? If so, and you know, the whole point of this too is, I talk to a lot of young people, it's an action plan. What's your action plan? If you want to perform, when's your next gig? When are you playing next? When's your next rehearsal? When are you planning to write your next great song? Like, it's time to do it, right? But you have to find that in yourself. And if you're not practicing with a band, don't have a gig, start asking yourself why, you know? What is it that you want to do with this, and why aren't you already starting to try? It could be production. Same concept. Do you want to produce? Do you want to work in a studio, home studio or professional studio, and record others? Same stuff. Are you doing it now? And what are you doing? I have an interesting student. I'm teaching Intro to Tech right now, and I have a student who brings something in for us to listen to every week. Really good. He's one of those people I talked about, born with a computer in his hand, and he can produce. He doesn't play anything, doesn't play an instrument, but he, you know, the computer is his instrument, right? The recording, the DAW is his instrument, and he makes all different types of music, and they're mixed pretty well, they're recorded pretty well, they're mastered, they're loud, which is part of the thing about getting it. It's all different genres that apply to those media. But he has no desire to do business with them. He told me he's not concerned with that. He's got 400 or so of these things. So, you know, you can't give somebody ambition, but he's already set to be like a killer in licensing, but he doesn't seem to want to yet. And I told him in the class, well, that's, you know, at some point you're going to have to be on your own and eat inside, you know, live inside and eat 3 times a day. Then you might want to do some business with your 400 pieces of music, but incredible. Yeah. So what do you want to do? Try everything. Try all of the above. Find 1 or 2 things that really are you, and just focus. Focus on them without hesitation. Yes lives in the land of no. Okay, I won't tell all my stories, but yes lives in the land of no. I said I've been playing since I was 19. One day I'm out at Sandy Hook, 19 years old. I'm just goofing off, driving around. I see that there's a place, it's called the Seagull's Nest. So there, I'll stop in there and get a soda. I see a bunch of people up there, I'll see what's going on. So I get up there for my soda, and there's a guy playing the acoustic guitar and singing with tracks, right? And he's awful. I mean, dreadful, like terrible. So it dawns on me, and I ask the bartender, I say, my band would like to play here. You know, what do we have to do? What does that entail? I didn't have a band. I had no band. I was taking lessons from a guy. I knew he had a band. I don't know what made me say this to the guy. Just the fact that this person who had the gig was so bad, right? And the bartender says to me, much to my surprise, well, the owner is right here. Why don't you ask him about it? So I said something to this owner of this bar, an older man who had a monocle in his eye, looked like a cartoon character for real, and spoke with this thick accent. You know, it was like out of a bad movie. But I convinced this guy that my band should play here. We'd like to play. He says, all right, you have an audition. You play here next Saturday. Great. I called my guitar teacher at the time. Chuck, I got a gig. What do we do? Yeah. So we put a band together, he and I. We got bass and drums. We rehearsed once. We auditioned that Saturday, and they loved it. And we played every day that summer. That was like probably in May. So June, July, August into September, we played every Saturday. Got paid well, had a regular steady thing, and we were playing jazz at the time. So, you know, yes lives in the land of no. You don't know until you ask. You have to ask. They will never come find you. I don't think anybody will ever come and find you and say, hey, Antonio, can you write a song for me? Or can you come play for me? They're not going to find you. You have to find them. And you have to be understanding of the fact that you'll get far more no's than you'll get yeses. I have. When I was licensing music, I started submitting stuff in 2001, and I didn't get a yes until 2006. I was really frustrated, was ready to give up with it. And then one day I'm going to my studio where I teach, open the mail, and back then they paid by a check in the mail, so I got a check in the mail. And my stuff was on, I think, 4 TV shows, and it was a pretty nice check. I was not expecting it at all. At the licensing level, people don't call you and say, your music's on TV. You just get paid. That's how you find out. You get a check, or you get a direct deposit now. But yes lives in the land of no. I'll say one more story about that. When I was at Rutgers, a student who was there wrote an article for Downbeat magazine, which is still around, I think, but it's an international magazine, great music magazine, legendary thing. And he wrote a column in there, right? You had to listen to a solo, transcribe it, and transcribe it and do an intellectual analysis of the solo. And the guy was a really bad student, you know. Great guy, good friend or whatever, but just wasn't a good student. And my first thought was, well, if Rich can do this, I'm sure I can. And I told my best friend at the time, who I actually played a gig with on Sunday night, we're still good friends. I told him, my friend Steve, he goes, they're not going to use your article. Why would you even bother with that? What do you mean you're going to send an article to Downbeat? So I sent it in, disregarding Steve, you know, the crab in the bucket, right? And a few days after they got it, the editor of Downbeat called me, Jim, it's great. It'll be in next month's. Your check is in the mail. That led to a whole little side career of writing about music. I did 4 or 5 articles for Downbeat. That led to the book for Hal Leonard, which paid me a lot of money. You know, so yes lives in the land of no. And many times I've had ideas like that, and you don't hear anything, or the answer is no. But you still keep trying. Last one, and yes lives in the land of no, because this was a great topic. Belief in yourself and persistence, right? If you're not persistent, forget the music business. Through my teaching business, I always get emails where they want me to donate to fundraisers, which is fine, and I'm happy to do that. I'll give some certificates for lessons. It's usually a good cause, happy to be a part of it. But I also add in that email, every time without fail, do you have live music for the event? And 9 out of 10 times they thank me, they've already got live music, but thank you for asking. 3 years ago, the answer was, no, we don't. What can you provide? So I got the gig at this private event, and if any of you are doing these things, no, private events can pay really, really well. They've had us back every year since, and it's a really lucrative engagement. Just by asking. Everybody else at that point had said no for years. Every time I sent that email, do you need live music? The answer was always no. But finally got a yes, and I put a few $1,000s in my pocket as a result. Doing something I enjoy, something creative. So yes lives in the land of no. So one of the things I'm talking about today is licensing. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but for young musicians, I think it's a dynamite way to get into some success with music. If you're already recording your music and you have 2-minute pieces of this and that, like the fellow I spoke about in my class, start submitting it. Does anybody know, just raise your hand, show your hands, do you know what Taxi is?
The movie?
You guys know, because I already taught you.
Yeah.
Taxi the movie, right? A TV show called Taxi. Taxi.com is a music licensing third party. Producers for television, film, and advertising are looking for music. Original music, or in many cases, music that sounds just like something else. Just close enough so that they don't get sued. Right? But something else that's already popular. So if that's the case, if you join Taxi, and I did, I got some placements from it. I got some great advice. They used to give feedback. But I think it's $300 a year, and I think every submission is $5. And there's countless listings. You make country music, you make hip-hop, R&B, rock, pop, jazz, whatever, world music. You name the category, somebody needs something for something they're producing. And you have a shot. You have a shot. So strongly suggest you try licensing your stuff for TV.
With this licensing, are you putting in your own price, or there's a set price that they give you for?
Oh, that would be nice. That would be nice. Yes. No. If licensing is show business, like I always say, it's probably the lowest rung of show business, but it's a foot on the ladder. No, and it's in licensing you don't get credited. Generally speaking, like the shows my stuff was on, it doesn't say Jim Joslin wrote this, that, and the other. It's just you get paid. You get paid, and you don't negotiate. But some of them pay really well. I know in my experience, I've had some stuff on Nickelodeon. They don't pay well. They pay terribly, right? MTV used one of my songs in a show. They used the entire thing, a rock guitar thing, and that paid really well. So that's kind of hit or miss. I'm with a company now called Crucial, which is really exclusive and really hard to get your music. And I talk about yes lives in the land of no. I've sent them many things. They finally accepted one piece. It's actually on this CD I have here if anybody's interested. But the piece got accepted. And from what I know about, a friend of mine who does a lot of licensing also talks about Crucial. If they accept your piece, they're going to get it placed, and they pay well, So my stuff, most of it's been on cable. If you can get stuff onto a broadcast network, of course, that usually adds a 0 or 2 to the fee. So it all depends. I think getting into licensing in the beginning is not so much, it's a great question to ask. It's a really valid question. Not so much about the money right away. You're going to get paid, but it's like a credit, and it's a start. It kind of validates what you're doing recording, like you're doing it right, because it has to be broadcast quality. Usually they want something that's at least 2 minutes long. They want something with a specific ending, not like a fade out, So you have to have some recording chops and editing chops to get it published on television or used in television for sync. But it's a good goal to get started. And as I said, when you guys all signed up, I'll email you some things further about licensing. That'll be some of the stuff I send you. Okay, so if some of these things you start to do, if some of your endeavors start to pay off, find people who look like that to help you take care of it. Find business people that walk around in suits with short hair. Find people that you can trust. If your parents know somebody who's a good accountant or some kind of like an entertainment lawyer, if something you do starts to hit, take care of it. Were you in the class with
Yes.
George?
Mm-hmm.
So we had a student in our class who wrote a song or co-wrote a song or was part of producing this song that really hit. And when they realized it was really going to hit, as my understanding of the story, Zach might know further, but they cut him out. He didn't know any better. They cut him out, and this thing went on to make millions. He got paid, but not what he should have been paid.
I think he sampled someone else's song, and instead of just reaching out and being like, hey, how much can I buy for copyright, he just sent it out. It got really big, and the people said, hey, you're either going to, we're going to pay you to buy it, or we're going to sue you for it.
That's true.
And so I think he got bought out.
They sampled the thing, and then the rapper who did the rap over the thing got involved with somebody else, and they kind of cut George out. Like I said, he got a few bucks, but they laughed all the way to the bank. So find people who understand contracts. If you have a mind for that, study it yourself as well. I don't. The licensing contracts you get are 15 pages long, legalese. I read the first paragraph and I'm ready to fall asleep. I don't understand it. It's not meant for me. And they're written to be that way. We're supposed to be confused. You guys all know what's happening with streaming and stuff like that. Music on that platform, it's not designed for us to make money. The machine has figured out that they're going to make the money and we're not, and how do you like that? So there are some places that are trying to rectify that, but ultimately the machine's keeping the money, and the performers, the creative people, not so much. So, at some point, one of us is going to get so upset about it we might even try to do something, but we'll see. We'll see. And by that I just mean making another platform that does pay artists fairly. I didn't mean anything else by that. That might have come off wrong. So the next part is starting to treat this like a business. That's a mind shift that most artists, certainly when I was young and starting, I didn't think of it like that, even though I went out and got a gig early on. I didn't really understand anything about business. I didn't know anything about business. There's books. It's something you can study. There's classes you can take. But it is a business. Here's another great idea. Don't think of yourself as a guitar player or a singer or a pianist or a trumpeter. Right? You had trumpet. You're a content creator, and you run a media corporation. Today, to make money, you're not just a guy who sings or a girl who plays the flute or whatever. You're a content creator, and you own a multimedia company. If you start thinking of it like that, you're going to need a website, need graphic design chops. You have to understand social media, and understanding that while it's social media, a lot of it's social, and there really isn't a whole lot of media, but you still have to understand how to write advertising language, like the student who has 400 pieces that he doesn't want to sell, he submits them, and 1,000 imaginary friends like his song on Facebook or YouTube, wherever he sends it. No money. 1,000 likes from people you never really met, that's great, that's cool. But that's not going to help you, again, live inside and eat 3 times a day. So starting to understand it is a business. How can you do it to sell the music? And if you make that mind shift, that's when things can start to change. It's a business. It's not, hey, I played, I play, let's go jam and all that kind of stuff. It is that, but it can develop to a further thing. It's a mind shift that you have to take. Okay, so leverage. There's ways to start doing that. An interesting side story. I go to a certain cafe in Colts Neck sometimes for my coffee in the morning. And young guy, 19, 20, and I just knew he was a musician, right? This is about 6, 7 months ago. I said, hey man, what do you play? He got all excited that I knew he was a musician. Long story short, he tells me, and my band has a song on YouTube, check it out, right? So I did. 40,000 views. Wow, great. I didn't love this, but I understood it, and 40,000 people have seen his video. So the next time I go to the coffee shop, I said, that's great. Are you monetizing that? That must be incredible. You got that many people looking at your music. He says, oh no, we don't know anything about that. We just, it's so great that so many people like our music. I said, well, I think I can help you. I'll even give you some advice for free. And I gave him my information. I'm still waiting for the call. maybe he thought I was jiving, and then I see him there once in a while. It's a little awkward, like he doesn't really want to. I wasn't trying to, I was literally seriously going to give him some free advice and try to help him. He wasn't interested. 40,000 views. So you try to build leverage. He's got an audience somehow. So, right, if you go to a club and say, well, 40,000 people are watching my videos, I bet 300 or 400 of them would come to the show. If you hire us, you can play at the Stone Pony. You can play at whatever club, right? And they're going to pay you. You asked about dictating your price. Yeah. If you bring 400 or 500 people out to hear you, you can dictate a price. And we're going to take half we're going to charge this at the door. We'll take half, and we get a split of the bar. And you walk out with $3,000 or $4,000 for the night's work. If you have that leverage. If you go to the Stone Pony and say, hey, we got a band together. We just started playing. I don't know if anyone's going to come, but will you have us play? Don't call us, we'll call you. They're not going to be too interested, right? So, leverage. One of the things I would have told him, you guys know what Patreon is? Yeah. If 40,000 people are willing to look at his music on YouTube, if even a small percentage of them would pay $6, $7, $8, $9 a month for some extra content. I taught here a long time ago, as well as coming back a few years ago. I taught around 1998, 1999, and I had a student in my class who was really one of the greatest success stories. He was not a great student. He was a real wise guy. Solid C student at best. I think he got a C. He went on to build a company that helped people monetize their YouTube, and now he could buy Lincroft if he wanted to. And I think YouTube or Google just bought his company for a zillion. So he's totally made it in tech. And if you had told me that this guy is going to do this in life, I never would have believed that. But so there are ways. If you use his service, if you get 1,000 people to watch videos you make, as I met him afterwards, he was giving a TED talk, and I was part of this thing, and I met him, and he said, if you get 1,000 people regularly watching your videos, you won't make a living, but you can make a nice little side income. And I guess I meant to say this earlier, I think, but it's also really important that we start to understand what is success in music, the music business. Is it Beyonce, Jay-Z, Ed Sheeran, Bruno Mars, Adele, you name it, whoever is playing to sold out houses all over the world? Is that it? That's definitely part of it. But that's like the highest level that you could aspire to. There's many other things you can do. Many other things you can do in the music business to succeed. Play regularly, write for people. Maybe you write a song that Adele sings. So you kind of have to also define what is success in the music business. Anyone have a tissue?
Out of luck, Professor.
Maybe we got something down here.
Okay, I'll survive. That time of year, I guess. Oh, that's going to be wet.
Other sanitizing wipes.
All right, I'm good. So, to wrap up, just a couple more thoughts for today. How are we doing on time, Antonio?
We're at 12:47.
Oh, wow. Okay, seems like we just got started. Be open to anything and everything. As I always say to my Brookdale classes in the beginning, I am you. I'm one of you guys. I graduated from Brookdale. I did this, 100 years ago, but I graduated from Brookdale and went on to some other things. I don't know what I knew at that time, but I've learned a lot in the intervening years. Be open to everything. And I'm going to say this as a friend. This is not an insult. Music didn't start when you started paying attention to it, right? Beethoven was writing some music about 400 years ago, and still nobody come along has done anything like that. So it's not this thing about, hey, that music's old, I don't like this, I don't like that. Be open. Listen. There's music all over the world. And, I'm still learning new things. World music, music from New Orleans, all sorts of genres and things like that. So you don't know. Keep listening. You all are at a great advantage in that you're in the generation or the time of YouTube. Just about everything that's ever been played or recorded is on there for free, right? For the price of your internet connection. You can see and hear all of it. So, yeah. don't think music started 20 years ago or 10 years ago when you started paying attention. You know, there's a lot of really, really deep, great music out there that you might not know yet. So be open to that. Okay, so we're going to end at the beginning. This is the beginning. If you enjoyed the things that you heard here today, I asked you to sign up. I'll be in contact. I'll follow up. I'll reach out. I have some free stuff. And if you like more than that, there's also that. There's some, I teach. And if you're looking to master the guitar, you know, I can be helpful in those kind of areas. So I coach bands. I do all sorts of stuff, the business advice, whatever. So there can be more than just the speech today, the talk, which was a real thrill for me to do. Thank you again, Zach, so much for having me.
And thanks for coming in.
It was
Much
an
appreciated.
absolute
We all
delight.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. So we have until 1. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to do a Q&A. Anyone have anything in particular they want to ask about, or any other thoughts?
What would you say is your main genre? Or do you have a main genre?
Me personally, well, I like to play jazz. I'm known as a jazz guitarist, but I am certainly not a purist in that regard. You know, I play the blues, I play classic rock, I play some little classical stuff. I love world music, I play Latin music, I play music from all over the world. I write in many genres, you know. I've written rock songs with words, pop songs, jazz tunes with words, instrumental jazz tunes, fully composed classical pieces, so lots of stuff. But, you know, as far as like rock and popular music, you know, my heart is with like classic rock of the late 60s. Hendrix, The Doors, The Beatles. The Doors are my favorite group. Led Zeppelin, this kind of stuff. Pink Floyd, I saw somebody before with a Pink Floyd shirt. Classic rock, that in a popular genre, that gets me. But I love like a great pop tune. I like Adele, you know, so I love to hear her sing. Paul Simon, you name it, all kinds of things. Yeah. The things I don't like would make a much shorter list. You know, I'm not much of a country music fan, and I'm not much of a like the real extreme hard metal where there's kind of screaming and real loud. I don't see much in that. But outside of that, I'm open to most things. If it's played from the heart and it has a feeling to it, you know, it works for me. Yeah. Anybody else?
You said that like you could help us master the guitar. What do you mean by that? Like lessons? Or...
I could, yeah. You know, as I understand it, you know, as long as you're not currently taking a class with me, that is available. I've been told that, so yeah, that is available. Private lessons. I have a studio in Little Silver, and a project I'm going to start. Well, not work. It's actually finished. I wrote a book before. In my talk, I alluded to. I've been working on a concept that's really helped me get better faster. This was an idea that many years ago was kind of shared with me, and almost like in passing, looking at the different things that are in improvising. If you play solos, and I heard everybody was jamming in there, so whoever was doing that is into playing solos, right? Mm-hmm. The characteristics you can identify in a solo. If your specific goal was to learn about improvising, I have that. But there's just general things for mastery, yeah. Technique stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, all that. I'm going to be producing. I wrote a book on the concept, and a really big publisher was going to publish it, and then they weren't. So yeah, so I'm probably going to do this myself. And I'm looking to meet some video people to perhaps help me produce this thing. But I'm excited about it because it's like nothing I've seen. I mean, there's a million. You can go on YouTube anytime, and people will talk about improvising and let me teach you this secret. And John Coltrane did that. And everybody's got a way, but it's nothing like this. My thing is holistic. It covers everything you could possibly do in a solo. There's 12 characteristics, right, that you can do, and it's 12 things you can theoretically do in a solo, and this covers them all in depth.
So this be a book or a video or?
Well, it's a book.
Book.
It is a book. I shared it with a colleague of mine who's also published a book on the topic, and he was great. He looked at it, he loved it, and he said, Jim, it's really dense, it's big. You should probably cut a little bit and make it into 2 parts. So it's in 2 volumes. Now, that was good advice. shorter, right? Everyone's attention span is shorter.
Yeah, 3 seconds. No, I'm being serious. It's legit like
Yeah.
3 seconds.
Hey, I teach students who have negative attention.
Well, I'm one of them.
And I am guilty, believe me, everybody, I am guilty of the same thing. I play with the phone way too much. Play stupid games and look at I do all that too. I'm guilty of it, but I try to, I try to prioritize, and part of it is time management. There's a time to just veg out and do silly stuff and just do whatever, but then there's a time to work, It's time management. There's a great book on music called Effortless Mastery. Kenny Werner, great piano player. Everybody had it when he wrote it. It was all the rage, But there's one thing I got from it that was really poignant, really memorable. And he said that, some musicians will get into a thing where if I don't have 3 hours to practice today, I just forget it. I won't even bother. I've only got 15 minutes right now, so why even? No, use the 15 minutes. Use it. Try to accomplish one thing. I'm going to run my scales for 15 minutes. I'm going to put the metronome on and work on my time. Try to accomplish one thing. And his point was that a focused 15 minutes can be more useful than just sort of noodling around for 3 hours. There's a time for that too, but so time management, right? I live in the world that we live in, right? Netflix and YouTube and, believe me, I'm into all that too. But when it's time to get serious, then I do that too. So, yeah. Zach.
Where can we find some of your stuff, like your books, your music, stuff about you? Where can we find that?
Well, thank you. I have a YouTube channel which has some live performances. The recordings, the one I have here today, is on Spotify. I brought CDs. I'm happy to give them. I don't think I have enough for everybody. I don't even know if anybody listens to CDs, but that's all streaming. It's all available on Spotify, so I'm collecting my, negative 1 cent when you listen to it. So, but yeah, I've been really prolific over the last couple of years. I recorded that in, I think, December of 2020. I recorded 2 things before that, actually. I went to a studio, we did 12 songs, and I made that into two albums. I did that in 2020. Last summer, I recorded here an album, which the school was great about and helped me promote. And Professor Slater helped engineer it and taught me some things about, and quite a few things, actually, about engineering and mixing. And if you guys don't know, he's awesome. Study classes with him, We recorded it right there. It was 2 guitars, bass, and drums, and it's all like Brazilian samba and bossa nova. All my 6 of my original tunes in that style.
Was it Shapeshifter or early?
Yeah, Shapeshifter is the one I have, and this is Early Summer Evening.
Okay.
So to answer Zach's question, YouTube and Spotify has all my stuff. Someone else was raising their hand. Yeah, what's your name?
Andrew.
Andrew.
Nice to meet you.
It's my son's name.
Oh, cool.
My favorite.
Son?
Yeah, so I saw you quoted Lao Tzu before, and I was curious if you have a particular interest in Lao Tzu or like Eastern philosophy in generally, or was that just like
that's a great question. I'd like to say yes to that, and that I'm deeper and hipper than I am. I just remember hearing. I might have heard that in a business conference. I used to take some consulting for running my studio, and I learned a lot. Some of the things I've shared with you today, I've learned from great consultants and business teachers too. Because here's the secret, right? The things about success in the music business, well, it applies to relationships, it applies to your health, your finances, your job if you're not doing the music business. Success in anything is about having an action plan. And that particular quote just always spoke to me. Because I can't tell you how many people I encounter, man, I didn't have the time. I just, man, time. No. I get that. Get up earlier. Stay awake longer. Skip something that's foolish, You have time. And look, time is a made-up thing. So that quote spoke to me. There's other things. I've read some things, other things by him, but that one really, I'll never forget that. Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much for coming. This was a real delight for me, a real treat.
Professor Jocelyn.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Zach.
No problem. So, like I said, Professor Jocelyn is a teacher here at Brookdale. If you're interested in learning more about music business, he does have a class that he teaches.
Yeah.
Is there another one that you also teach here?
Music business and music tech, which is going on now. Intro to music tech. It's not like mastery. If you guys are already doing this, you know, you're beyond that. But it's an introduction to music technology. I've been doing that a couple years. And the business. In the past, I've taught guitar here, and I've done history of like classical music, so a few different things. But right now, it's tech and business.
Alright.
That's a great professor, by the way. Highly recommend Joss. I'm not saying because he's here. Like I had him last spring. Loved him. Great guy.
I can't improve your grade now.
Well, I got an A, so I mean. Hey.
Right on. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Alright.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. I don't know about a jam. Is there a jam this Thursday as well, or is that next week?
I have no idea.
Okay, we'll get back to you on that. But thank you all for coming. If I don't see you this Thursday, see you guys next week. Pleasure as always. Get home safe.
Alright. We have about half an hour left to the club. If you guys want to hang around a little longer?
Yeah.
You guys? If you guys want to ask Professor
Okay,
Jocelyn
sorry that I was
questions?
like freaking walked up to you and like randomly asked you. Because you look just like my friend.